Hi, Kim. Welcome back to Astrology Alert. So, what have you been up to? What have you been intuiting?
Intuiting. Well,
Intuiting.
a lot of intuiting going on. Um, I was um, I was just going to show you that I made some cards that I thought could be helpful for people. It's taken quite a while to do them, but it was something I knew that I wanted to do. And so they're called Power of Intention cards,
Hmm.
and they have they come with a little stand like that. So you can place the card on the little easel, and they're black and white. They look like this. They have all have pretty
Ah.
pictures on them. And
Mm.
then on the other side is a prayer of intention. And they're kind of used like oracle cards. You can use them situationally, like if you have a situation and you want to know how to handle it, you can do that. But you can pull one a day, one a week, one a month. If it's a big thing like forgiveness and you want to just keep it up for the month and just keep repeating that prayer. Um, but they have, I'll just kind of pull one for today. So I got personal power, has the
Mm.
lighthouse on this side. And then on the back is the prayer. And it says, today, my prayer of intention is to recognize and exercise my personal power. May I use my personal power today in harmony with each choice I make. And
Mm.
so you
Nice.
can just kind of repeat that prayer and keep it in your intention for the day. I have some people that choose several a day to work on.
Mhm.
Just depends on how you'd like to use them, but they're kind of used more like oracle cards. Um, and then I also have I do my classes with Debbie, but we're kind of on hiatus because we're doing our retreat next month. But uh, we're I do have classes that are um, on my website that you purchase them and download them, so you have them forever. And one of them is a beginning course to work on your abilities. If you're just starting to kind of delve in or get interested, it starts from literally the very beginning. It helps you pick a personal practice, and it goes all the way to figuring out what your dominant and secondary abilities are. And then there's kind of an advanced class that you can go to after that. And then I have one on orbs, if you want to start working with orbs. And I have one on the dowsing rods.
Oh,
So
fascinating.
if you're interested
Yeah.
in any of those things, just to begin, you know, if you're in that seeking mode where you're ready to go, those are just some places to start, some things to do to help you out or continue your practice. So that's what I've been doing.
That's great. That's great. I'll be sure to put all that information in the video description so people can find your channel
Great,
and the different links. And
great.
it's really fascinating that you've made black and white cards because immediately the connection is to Saturn. Saturn is the planet of practice. And
Uh-huh.
Saturn, nobody likes Saturn. As soon as a person hears, oh, Saturn isn't, because it tends to be challenging. But the thing is, the irony is things only happen when Saturn gets involved because Saturn is the one that encourages you to practice. And the idea of setting an intention and then working with it is Saturnian. So this is a really great way
Interesting.
to link, the astrology to this and to remind people that Saturn energy that way, yes, it can be challenging, but it's also the most critical in moving things forward. And in that sense, it's the practice part. The Jupiter wouldn't be like a black or brown, or black and white type thing. Jupiter would be more colorful, but it's the result of your
Right,
focus that that's why it happens. I mean, otherwise, why would you set the intention, then you move in
right.
that direction, right? So yeah, that's excellent.
That's fascinating. Yeah. And I before I made the cards, I work with intention all the time because I think it's so important to get clear on that so that you know how to move forward. Because if you don't know why you're doing something, you don't know what the intention is behind it, it's really hard to manifest. It's hard to move forward in your life. It's hard to figure out what your purpose is right now. those kinds of things. So it's such an important thing. And that's so fascinating to know about Saturn because, yeah, it's very, very, very much in line with that for sure.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's the, you could say it's the connection to a person's will. And I've often felt this way really from the beginning, since I got into astrology, that a large part of the chart is your own will interacting with the universe and you get something back. So it's not really correct to say, well, I have this chart or I have this life and things are just happening to me. No, you're
Right.
doing things and you're getting things back. So if you get better and better at setting intentions, which is really what it is, you set an intention and then you act on it, well, then of course it's going to affect your life. And there will still be events and things that are beyond your control, but the bulk of it is you. I think of it as
Absolutely.
80-20. Most of it is your intention, then it channels through the planet cycles. And the other thing is that a person that is more intentional tends to do a lot better when the cycles are more challenging because they're already practiced in that. And so they just work even harder. And the other thing is that with Saturn, what I noticed is that nobody does anything serious until Saturn comes by, in terms of sacrificing
Oh,
something
right.
to move forward. So it's a super important energy. And it's very much wired to the idea of, okay, I'm going to work on this in order to create it. Manifestation is creation, right? And it starts with your
Right.
mind, and then
That's
and
right.
then you take actions, and also too, you probably would agree with this, that you set the intention, and in a certain way, the universe starts to work on it with you. So then you start seeing strange synchronicities and coincidences that are aligned with that intention. Which, if you then think, you
Totally.
think, well, wait a second, that means that if I'm intending negative, I'm going to see those too. So you don't want to do that, right? That's the whole logic, is stay out of
Right.
the, oh, this is no good and it won't work and nobody likes me. Then the
Yeah.
universe will say, okay, well, if that's your dream, I'll help you manifest it.
Yeah.
But it's not a good thing, right?
That's not a good dream.
No,
Well,
no.
exactly. And that is how manifesting works. I think people think it's magic. It's really not. It's very, the universe and your guides, your higher self, however you want to put it, very practical. It's
Mhm.
not, it's not just magic. It's a very practical way that all of this stuff works. And if you can just kind of get in that mode, like you said, of kind of figuring out exactly where you are and what you would like, then the universe starts to work with you as you take steps forward as well. It very much is a partnership. It isn't
Exactly.
just one thing happening to something else. Otherwise, where would our will be, right? We all have free will. So it's a partner, it's a deliberate decision and a partnership that happens. You're right.
Exactly. Exactly. I 100% agree.
Mhm.
And and then the thing is that person realizes this, that itself is magic, because then you know what the work is. I mean, this is the thing. I mean, if you're in an incarnation in a body, things don't happen immediately. There's a process. It takes time. It takes, there's a period of time you may have to wait, but the intention is what takes you there. And it's just a
Mhm.
matter of showing up and training yourself to be like this. And that then wires into the chart and so on. And
That's exactly
so,
right. And I remember I mean, I learned from you that, planets, when a planet comes into your is in your chart and it comes in, and that it's really the way you respond to
mhm,
that. It's not that it takes you over and then everything just goes crazy. It's your response to it. So if you know that, okay, a planet's coming in that's going to be very challenging, or it's going to challenge me in a lot of ways, being able to meet that with, okay, I'm going to really be practical. I'm going to be really honed in on my decisions and honed in on my daily life so that nothing trips me up. I can be really aware because I know this planet's coming in and it
mhm.
offers challenges. So I think that's a great thing to keep in mind as well, that even then, even with planets coming into our charts or through our charts, we still have control over how we respond to that.
Exactly right. How you respond, how you channel it. I mean, even the notion that if you say, okay, well, you can intend what you would like to manifest, But then the person may say, well, I don't know what to intend. Okay, well, then what you do is you intend clear mind, because the clear mind will show you what to intend. There's always a way to do this, but keep
Yes.
it on the upside. The more you start to drift into, this isn't happening, I'm not good at this, then that's what you're intending. Like you're intending even when you don't realize it. So that's the
Exactly.
job all the time, because you could also intend something really positive at 9 o'clock in the morning and then spend the rest of the day thinking negatively. That's also not going to work, because then you undo the thing that you did. So,
That's right.
so intending to be really positive is a really good intention, for example. So all of them are good.
Absolutely.
And in a sense, if you're always intending on the upside and you think of it as a year-long process, then you're constantly working in this direction. What happens is you become really mentally fit, just like someone that goes to the gym becomes really strong in their muscles and in their tendons because they're always working them. It's the same idea, right? And the great part
That
is
is
that
so
it stays
true.
with you, and after a while it's natural, because at first it's new, and so you have to overcome your previous momentum that is maybe more negative. But as time is passing, it becomes more and more natural. So then you won't even think that negatively during the day or whatever that could undo your intentions. It becomes uh,
I
the nature of
totally
your
agree
life.
with that. And you're right, it is more of kind of a habit that
Right.
you have to get into, in a mode that you have to kind of just continually keep stepping into.
Exactly.
Especially if you've been negative in the past, you've had, you've had that mindset. Undoing that, you're right, it takes time, but
Right.
it it does work.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
does come to fruition. It does work. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the Saturn in astrology is the contracting force. So if you think about something that contracts, it easily goes to negativity because it feels squeezed. And so the idea of someone being depressed, feel limited, feel like there are a wall around them, that's a Saturn feeling. But really, the idea is to turn the Saturn into its highest manifestation, which is the idea of focusing. Working and focusing is bringing the energy in. When you're doing that, you're channeling the Saturn. That's an actual planet in your chart that will start to deliver those results rather than the other results. But if you're not already at that point, then you have to build it to get it to that point. It means that up to now, your Saturn is tilting more negative. And then you can say, well, it's my upbringing, it's my all kinds of things, right? My childhood. All of that may be true, but at some point you have to turn it around, or things
Yeah.
will keep happening along those lines. That's why, for example, people will say things like, in my childhood, my father was an alcoholic, and then I keep meeting men that are alcoholics. Well, that's because that's the momentum. But you can now change that intention, and after a while, we don't know that how long that is. I mean, it's anything from a day to a year to whatever it is, right? The work
Right.
is like that. Get in there, and so, for example, through those cards, if a person is doing that and they're always training their mind on the positive side, it's inevitable. Your life will
Right.
improve. And so then when you have harder cycles, you just keep working. You keep working toward your goal. And when the cycles are easier, the universe delivers. It just gives you,
Yes.
it's like the bounty of things. And it's reflected. This is what, by the way, the whole idea of the attraction principle, you realize that you yourself are like a magnetic field or a field of energy. And whatever that totality of energy is what is attracting things. I know
Mhm.
that may sound to some people like it's Pollyanna. It's 100% true.
It is 100%
Yeah,
true. Well, there's a science to it, right? There is a science. It's not like it's crazy magic. There is a science to it, and you can test it out. Go out on a day you feel really happy and positive, and see how well things go for you as you go to the grocery store and you get the right parking space. You do it, and then go out on a day you feel, down and out, and see how things, again, that those that you attract, that I can't find a parking space, I can't da, 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 this person
exactly.
was rude to me, they cut in front of me, that
Yeah,
it
yeah,
is true, and you can
exactly.
test it out.
Exactly. By the way, I'm listening to you, and my mind knows exactly what you're talking about. And then, so now someone watching us could think, well, either these people are telling me the truth or they're both crazy. That's
Yeah.
possible. But no, but this is exactly it. I've said this to people many, many times. If I go out the door with my energy all, dense and out of sorts, I meet the people in that universe, and it's totally palpable. I'll go into a store somewhere, and someone is bumping me, and I'm thinking, "Oh my God, this is horrible." And and if I'm feeling really good, it's like I enter a different universe. The people are
Yes.
nice, everybody's smiling, things are
Yes.
flowing. So the thing to do is get in the right balance, get in the right harmony, so that things can flow, right? But it's an easy thing to say, and it takes quite a bit of time to practice and get really good so that you don't get those, oscillations where you get the bad days. And but if you work on it, and it starts definitely on the mental level by deciding this is where I'm going to go, and then as the days, weeks, months, are passing, you go that way, and then this is the idea that an astrology chart would be a map of what you can do, of your possibilities, rather than your limitations, right? You never think of, even, for example, someone that has something like Saturn Mercury square. The standard, if you go to the low end, would be, well, this person might have a limited mind because Saturn squares. Actually, what it is that they should be working on their mind. And a person like that can have an even stronger mind, right? They're the ones that write the book on mind. They'll write a book and say, this is how you master your mind and this and that. The person that doesn't have that pressure never develops that quality, right? So that's the irony, that having more challenges in a chart can be really, really useful. And even in the periods or cycles, people always make moves when the planets challenge them. When the planets are easy, then they kind of float, right? Which is good if you've done good things up to then you take a break, enjoy life, but you're not going to move forward in the same way. So
no, and when you hit those, when you practice, like you said, when you build that muscle where you're finding things that make you feel positive, whether it's music or meditation or whatever you choose to kind of build that positivity up in you, then when you do hit those speed bumps, because we all have death, we all have, you lose jobs, or you have, people around you that are having a difficult time, you're trying to help them. All of us have those things that happen, but when you have built up that muscle, what happens is you kind of are you're able to kind of go to your toolbox and pull out those tools, and then those kinds of things, they still happen, and they still are challenging, but you can move through them so much easier. You can move through them so much quicker. It just doesn't have the same, doesn't pack the same wallop as when you are not in that mindset, you're not paying attention, you're not, you're already negative, then it can just lay you flat. But if you're not in that space and something happens, you can move through it more quickly and more easily.
Yeah, I agree 1000%. That's exactly how it works. And it's just a matter of, the idea with something like Saturn as well, or this whole topic, is just keep showing up. Keep showing up. You will figure it out. Even if you think, well, I don't know how to do this. Don't worry. It becomes pretty obvious, especially as you are practicing and seeing the synchronicities, in the sense that you've made the connection. It itself starts to guide you, and then you'll get more out of what people are saying, someone else who's done it a lot more, or it could even be a person that appears random and it'll resonate with you. Oh, that's what it is. Because it's the universe speaking to you, because you've set up the line. It's like you've picked up the phone line and you're connected.
Exactly.
Rather than being disconnected. Yeah, 100% true.
Right. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So wonderful. That's good. Hope everyone tunes into your cards, and also you say you do courses too to explore the same.
Absolutely.
The same thing.
Just start somewhere. You got to start somewhere, and that's a good place to start.
Yeah, this includes too the notion that if a person isn't sure, and back to the thing where we said, well, the intention could be to have a clear mind, it also illuminates why meditation teachings work so well. Because if a person is not even bothering to necessarily imagine anything, but they're just doing a lot of mind centering, the same thing happens, because in that centering, bringing it in and being in harmony, there's a spontaneous connection to life as well. So there's almost like a envisioning without envisioning because of your harmony. So that gives meaning to that as well. So in that sense, person could just do that and not necessarily be worried about what to do next specifically. It'll come to them. It'll
Yeah,
it'll show up in due time.
yeah, I could not agree more. Exactly.
So, having said all that, and what about what kind of meditations do you think Trump is doing?
Yeah, I was gonna say, let's delve into these, the awful that is these people.
I know it is just so crazy, so crazy.
Well, and that it's interesting too, because he's actually a really good example of, he thinks that he masters the positive thinking. He's all about the book on positive thinking that his dad used to read and that he used to live by. But what Trump has, because he's not a positive person, right? So he's taken these principles of, kind of moving things forward, and he can make things happen because he bugs people. He doesn't give up. We've seen how tenacious he is. He is, kind of relentless in his pounding away. And he's a good example of that. You can make some progress, or you can get through things doing it that way. But at some point you hit a wall. And at some point it's never quite what he thinks it's going to be. It's always something, it's always lands with just a thump. And it's because there isn't that positivity, that positive flow that happens, like you were talking about, when you're kind of in sync with the universe, and you're really listening, and you're really aware, and you're really you're very present. You're aware of your thought process, and you're aware. He's aware of none of that, right? But he can still make some progress just by being forceful. So he's a good example of how you can force things through just by being the way that he is, a bully, basically. But it only goes so far. Yeah. And now we see him caught in this web that he himself has made, through all of his just negativity, just being negative all the time, and pushing negative stuff, and trying to get negative stuff done, and doing it in a negative way. And here he is. He's completely caught up in a nightmare. I mean, I wouldn't I wouldn't trade places with him for all of the money in the world.
That's true. It's true. It's totally true. I mean, if you think about it, it has a logic, or it has something that makes sense around. His problem is that he doesn't understand that he shares his being with everyone else. My sense of life is we're all one being. So if you're doing, negative things, even evil things to other people, it rebounds on you. Like, he's not in a cave; he's in society. So, in fact, Saturn has a society connection as well. It's the idea of the order of things. He keeps trying to, tear it down, do things that harm people. So then it turns on him, and that's why society has to put people like him in its place, or it'll just fall apart. It'll turn into chaos, and he doesn't understand that at all. So, but even so, I agree with you. It's the strength of his focus. That tells you the universe rewards focus, even if you are doing something that is not good for the entire being. But when you do that, it'll turn on you, and then things will come in to neutralize you, to stop you, because in violating the order, you violate everybody's harmony. And this is why, for instance, separately, this guy Menendez, the Democrat, and by the way, sad to see, but there are crooks on the Democratic side. If what I read is anywhere near true, are you kidding me? The guy's got, hundreds of thousands of dollars in his house, and he's saying, well, it's because I'm Cuban. No, it's because you're... I mean, God almighty, this is nuts. Oh, I'm storing all this money in socks and in different places because when I was in Cuba, come on. I mean, please. And then, there's this trail of evidence and so forth. So even so, he has some focus that he's followed. The problem is that he's violating the order. So the way I sometimes say to people is, you can be a great bank robber. The universe will help you for a while, but it's not a good thing to do. You are getting into dangerous territory. Trump is like a criminal machine. He doesn't know how to, respect rules. So then they come back to haunt him. And when you see the cycles it's in line with that. It's in line with that. The Saturn pressure that he's under is now as a result of prior actions, that confront him. And I would find it very unlikely that he would turn to a new direction. But you can learn from him in the sense that whatever it is, he fully believes in himself and in his insanity, and he pushes it. So I don't recommend that particular belief, but I recommend the belief itself and the intention.
Yeah, exactly.
Recommend. Yeah.
Exactly. And you can also see how because of his, like you were talking about, that energy field, right? His energy field it's basically hate. It's kind of the energy of hate, if you think of that as kind of covering somebody. And I've never seen anyone who's better at hate, because not only does he get people to hate the things that he hates and to hate on his behalf, and hate draws other people that hate are drawn to him, that other people that are kind of intolerant and hateful, they're very drawn into him. And then you also have people that direct hate at him. Mm-hmm. So he just is like this magnet for hate, and it's who he's become. It's his whole countenance, and it's going to be, and that's also why you see him surrounded by other criminals, other people who are just as awful. He draws them in. He draws it like a moth to a flame,
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And the thing is that this is common with people in history. I mean, I know that it's been overplayed to say Trump is like Hitler. He actually is a lot like Hitler. Watch videos on the Second World War when they talk about Hitler's journey, and you will hear all kinds of echoes. You'll go, oh, that's what Trump... Hitler was the first to say he attacked the news and called it fake news. Basically, news that he doesn't like, that's fake news. That's what Trump does. Hitler was the one enemy of the people. All that stuff comes from fascist thinking. They want to be totally in charge of something. But in the end, it's a really dangerous voyage for them, because they arouse. Hitler was trying to rule the world, and he aroused the entire world to push back. He said, no, we're not going to do this. And so the end is not good. Mussolini, the end is not good. I mean, all of them, in the end, don't do well. Some a little better than others, but for the most part, it's a horrible, horrible situation. So,
and it's that thing again of them kind of, you can take it so far, but like you said, at some point, the universe kind of pushes back on you, because that's just, it is the way that it is. You're not flowing in that steady flow of more positivity that can kind of radiate out. You're working in something that's very dense and kind of collapses at some point, and also brings up other things to push against it, to push it back.
Yeah, and by the way, through the form of people, like if you see it as one being, the majority pushes back. Mm-hmm. That can be the majority in your country, the majority through other countries, like what happened to Hitler. But it's that sense of moving in to neutralize you. And, then the other thing is, because then someone could say, well, okay, hold on. So if everything is one being, why does the one being create someone like Trump? Which is a question that you ask and you think, why is this guy here? Why do these people even appear? There you get into other questions where, sometimes an idiot, a malevolent person, is helpful to move things forward inadvertently. They don't realize what they're doing.
Right.
But Trump, for example, I think is instrumental in bringing women into power, because of the way he is. And I know this from a different side of astrology, the discovery of Eris in 2005. Women are rising, and in large measure, it's because of him. Had Hillary won that race, it would have been harder for women, because in a sense, there was no urgency, right? But through Trump and the Supreme Court and everything, women are really mad, and women are the bigger part of the electorate. More of them vote. It's a huge problem for the Republican Party and for Trump. And by the way, he's never going to see the end of this when it comes to women, because he's got this one aspect in his chart that goes into the next decade. So right now you're seeing, prosecutors, judges, E. Jean Carroll. It's going to continue. This is not going to end. He'll be forced to deal with his failures through women telling him, I hereby, which is the perfect, in his own karma, it's the perfect response. But also overall, in that sense, he's, even though it's, it'd be better if he weren't there at all. But in that sense, it's, when people look in history, they'll say that was when you really saw a surge of women energy, improving and increasing.
Absolutely. And because it is those harder energies come out, and then there, like you said, there's a response to it. There is just that is what they call in. And I think of the same thing with Putin and what he's doing, and he has actually grown the United Nations, right? The complete opposite of what he wanted to do. He was trying to conquer something and keep everyone at bay, and he's actually done the exact opposite, because for every reaction, right, there's an equal and opposite, or there's an equal and whatever the saying is, opposite reaction. That's exactly what's happening.
Yeah.
And so,
yeah.
and when it's those hard energies, those ones that don't work with, like you said, kind of unity, when they are this I'm by myself on an island. Well, no, you're not. And so you're going to have reactivity that comes back to you. And I always think of that. I'm like, he actually grew the United Nations the complete opposite. He was trying to break it up, with Trump in the office, and now he's done just the opposite. He's actually grown it.
Yeah, well, even more concerning for him would be with the logic that Putin, plays with. He's trying to rebuild the Russian Empire. So his whole concern has been that post 1990, the perimeter, in Europe, they're all independent republics. He doesn't want that. He wants to move further west. But in doing what he did, first of all, Finland, and by the way, Finland has a really, really competent army. That's not a good thing. Another 600 miles. So Finland, Sweden is not so much in this case a factor, but Finland is. And I'm seeing Ukraine will be in NATO as well. So now the entire Soviet Union is surrounded. But he's got this idea, by the way, that, well, we need these countries to be Russian because for security. No, nobody wants to invade Russia, Vladimir. Nobody wants to go there. So that's not a concern. This is a total lie.
You're safe.
Yeah, it's like he wants to go the other way. But yeah, as you say, the point is he's, elicited the opposite. But this is the other thing that Putin also illustrates, this thing about the discovery of Eris in 2005. Eris is a warrioress. It was when planets get named. That's the magic of synchronicity, where you think, well, how is it possible that astronomers find the planet and then they name it exactly what it is? So that's how life works. So Eris, being a warrioress, is challenging Pluto, which is the one before that. Pluto is like a super male energy. It's the idea of a male fascist. And Eris comes in and says, no, you don't get to be in charge anymore. So it pushes back against that. What do the Russian idea is that it should be a masculine controlled society. They're very much into masculinity. That is completely misaligned with where the world is going. That's why he's running into problems. And it's the same thing with Trump and his crew. Same idea, the idea of the alpha male being in charge. This is complete BS. It is not going to work. It could have worked to some extent in the previous century, not anymore. We're moving into a different era. That's why he's run into problems. And both of them, they're only taking their more selfish desires, into account, and not tuning into the entire collective. Because you need people, you're not doing this in a cave. You're around people all the time. So your relationships count for a lot. And if you go out of your way to damage them, then, life moves in on you and punishes you.
And you're right. And it's unlikely to change, because that is the way they just see the world, that it's me and everybody else. They are the center of their own world. And so they're never going to see that they're living in a place that is that everything is connected, and it's always seeking balance. And so it doesn't work. Their viewpoint doesn't work.
What you just said triggered something in my mind, because that is right there. That to me is the doorway into pure magic. Is you do have to be the center of your own world, because you are the center of your own world. Every single place in the universe is the center of the universe. But you got to keep two thoughts in your mind at the same time. You're the center of the world, but you're also a part of the world. You're also connected to the world. So if you only get one of those, you get in trouble, right? Because you don't realize, yes, of course I'm the center of my world, but I'm also connected to that world. So both of those, which means you can be completely absorbed in your own energy and working on what you believe and so forth. But, you need connection, compassion, respect, decency, all these things that these people don't have. They're basically I'm sorry, they're indecent human beings, in my opinion.
Yeah.
They're really, really out of sorts. They're causing damage, constantly through the way they think, the things they do. As you said, hate. It's the
Yeah.
energy of hate. Yeah.
Exactly. And it hasn't, with all of their, stomping around and, getting out their grievances and whatever else, it hasn't made them happy. Did any of them look happy? Do
No.
any of them look like they live in joy? Trump looks like he just looks like a joyless, miserable person. And I
Yeah.
think, and that's what he's brought to his,
Yeah.
I would say that the base of the base, that's what they're living in as well. And so yeah, it's not working, and it's not going to work
No. No. And
for them.
by the way, the cycles verify that. I mean, when I see things getting really intense, and it's right around when that Jack Smith trial is happening. Sorry, that can't be good. I don't care that you think you can run over all the rules. You do not want to be charged by the feds. It's the same thing with Menendez. Notice that they're very detailed. They put it all on because they investigate you. It's a tough situation. And at minimum, it's going to be in the public domain, and it's not going to help you. But it's beyond that. It's the logic of being stopped and, stopped from progressing when the cycles are really hard, and you have created in a way we were saying earlier how that's not like a random fated thing. He's done these things. It's not, he was doing
Right.
it. It's all coming out. I mean, unless you say, well, all of it is fake news. Well, that's kind of come on, it's a bit rich when 10 different people tell you the same thing. It's all in text. It's like if you imagine going into court and you say, well, that's fake news. No, that's your text. We've got it here. It says that you said so and so. So it's the consequence of his actions. And then, he runs into the storm when the cycles line up, right? So
That's right.
yeah, so 24 for sure, very complicated, even more so than 23 for Trump.
Now, what does it look like around? What does it look like with the planets around the United States during the 2024 election? What is it?
Okay,
Can you read
so
anything about that, or have you?
Yeah, that's the it's not exactly the same metaphor or analogy here, but the idea of keeping two thoughts in your mind at the same time. It's a little bit different, but it's the same idea about the fact that I can say Trump's prospects are very poor. The problem is that we're in a zone right now that is almost identical to the Civil War, where Neptune and Uranus were moving back in the 1860s. And so there was this buildup of, two sides having totally different ideas about where the country should go along racial lines, because the South back in the 1850s, 1840s, whatever, they were adamant that, it was their business. I mean, they were running a really profitable business, so they didn't want to give that up. Right. And then Lincoln comes in, and rightly, as a decent human being, back then Republicans were decent. That's what they were formed for. Can you imagine? It was the Democrats that were doing.
I know.
So,
I know.
Yeah. So then there was a major conflict, and you can see the echoes today. A different reason, but underneath all of Trump's stuff is this idea, the you that he says they are taking. Who's the they? The they are basic. It's white supremacy. He's back in Hitler's time, Hitler's credo, he wrote it out. He literally explicitly said, white men should be in charge. He said it. I mean, it wasn't a mystery. And Trump is kind of saying the same thing. White men should be in charge, and I should be the leader of this, right? Right. But the world has changed, and there are a lot of, things there's a lot of opposition to that. And so it's not going to work. It's just not going to work. Right. It's just because he has it in his mind. But now back to what you said, though, with the U.S., the problem is that where we are, if you look at the echoes of the Civil War, what happened there was that the good side won, and I fully believe that the good side is going to win again. But I do have a bit of I don't know, worry is too strong a word, but I kind of go, well, last time what happened is the good side won, but there were leftovers, where what happened, there was reconstruction, and the next thing
Yeah.
they were cutting deals instead of being really firm around, no, this cannot happen. And we
Right.
need
Right.
to, we need to be straight about it. And there's where, because we're in a more modern era and there's a lot more communication, the odds are better that it'll be resolved better this time around. But if you are looking for a 24 election without tension, and even after the election, if you're looking for it to be settled, look again, because I'm really skeptical. My feeling is that the Democrats maintain power and the Republicans are really sore about it, and this MAGA thing is not going to go away right away. But then
Right.
if you ask yourself, well, what do we do? That's all we can do. You got to vote against them until they get used to the idea that this is going to bring them losses. They already kind of know it, but they've painted themselves in a corner because they followed this guy. And part of
Yes.
it is that they were building this way for years. He was like the conclusion almost, or the
Yes.
pinnacle of
Yes.
it. So now they're stuck
Absolutely.
because they know that if they reject them, they've conditioned all these loonies to think this way, and so then they'll definitely not win. I mean, if they start saying, "Well, we reject Trump," then they'll lose by 20 points. This way, it'll be a close election. If you go back to the 1860s, very tight, like some of the argument was around, it was so close they had to cut deals, right? So,
Right.
but there's no solution other than, deny them the vote and hang in there until they, start to change their mind. The cycles do move as we go
Right.
toward the second half of the decade. It gets easier, but my feeling, I don't know what you intuit, but my feeling is that it'll take at least this election and the next midterms, and maybe even 28, but definitely this and the next midterms, still
Right.
under a state of, Looney Tunes, people talking. I mean, total made up stuff where you think, this is crazy. I mean, what are you guys talking about? It makes no sense at all, but it's what they say, and,
Right. And that's where they've gotten to, is just whatever Trump says is the truth. Nothing else. It doesn't matter what's in the press. It doesn't matter what anyone else says. If he says he didn't say this, or that somebody else said something, they just believe it, because it's more like a cult, really. It's
yeah,
not really like a normal, Republican Party. It's not, they have no platform. They have nothing they're trying to push. They're no real like political agenda. It's all culture wars. It's all, they and us, and base and at the bottom line is, it's all just about money and power. That's all this
yeah,
is about. Really, there aren't any grand plans at all. But yeah, that's
yeah,
that's
yeah.
exactly
No, and,
right.
and by the way, money and power for the purveyors of the message. The people that are hearing this, they're not getting any money and power out of it. They're just being manipulated
Right.
into the idea
Yeah.
that, oh, we're protecting you and we're gonna, attack all the immigrants because they're the ones that are, they're there. That's why you're not succeeding, which is completely made up. It is not at all true. So, but that's the message to benefit, the people that are saying these things. They want power, they want money, and so forth. But the other thing is, with Trump, you see this pattern where he still has this one angle. It's a Neptune transit that is maintaining his popularity, but it's going to move beyond, already starting next year. And as you go into 25, 26, it goes to the worst possible place. That's why, if I were him, I would get on a plane and leave, but he won't do
Yeah.
that. His best bet is to,
Well, we may see that. I mean,
yeah, it's possible. Yeah,
yeah, it's a possibility.
yeah.
What do you see for Trump, like on through through next year? Is his chart pretty messy?
Oh, totally. It's a sale. This was something I was saying. I remember late last year. Wait till the spring when Saturn switches into Pisces, you'll start to see the decline. And almost immediately, Alvin Bragg charges him, and then other charges
Right.
came in. And
Right.
now, because think of his chart, he's Gemini Sun, Sagittarius Moon. So, but it's later in the sign. So the way cycles work, when you first hit the sign, you're hitting it broadly, but then when you move in and catch the degrees, now it's intense. And that's what happens next year. And
Right.
right around June, there's a station of Saturn really close to his sun and moon. That's not good at all. It's very
Right.
complicated. And beyond that, when in 25, 26 it exits, Saturn will leave Pisces, right? But the next sign is even worse for Trump because the first like 10 degrees of that sign is where he's got these planets that connected to the legal area. He always struggles when things go through there, things turn on him and so forth. So when I look at that in the context of what he is charged with and the evidence that is there, it's incredibly complicated because his only play seems to be, and it's true, I mean, I think in that sense he's very realistic. He knows that his only play is to try to become president again so he can just make it go away, which you got to ask yourself, how can you vote for something like that? You know, I don't know who I disrespect more, Trump or the people that follow him. I really have no patience. I don't care that you're too stupid. You're also too unkind and too cruel. It's awful.
Yeah.
I mean, it's totally awful that you would
It is
follow
awful.
you know, the man is a total sleazebag. I'm sorry. He is the worst of the worst. You know, can you imagine if you have kids and you have this person, you know, displaying his human behavior for you to see, and this is what you're going to emulate? It's brutal. It's just beyond brutal. But this is where we are. I mean, in a way, if you say, well, look, the US chart, the echoes and all that, do you think it's bad? Imagine back in the 1860s what they were thinking then. Because, you know, I mean, ask yourself, come on, do you really think this is a good way to behave, to enslave people? But in a way, you know, think about it. The whole idea of white supremacy is an enslavement pattern. It's a logic that, you know, I mean, having slaves, that would be really direct. But the idea of people with money in charge and keeping everybody else down, that's a form of slavery. That's what they want to do. It's the idea of money to the rich, have it be, you know, all up at the top and everybody else can just tough it out and you know. But it's not going that way for other reasons too. The Pluto cycle, Pluto entering Aquarius, it's been in Capricorn since 2008. Pluto in Aquarius is a people sign. That's why you're seeing more union successes now. You're noticing that there are more unions, you know, getting results. It's going to go more and more that way, not the other way. The fascist period is 2008 to 2025. That's because Pluto in Capricorn, it's like Pluto in Cancer, the opposite sign in the 1930s. It breeds this kind of behavior where males especially, I mean, I'm not aware of, well, there's the Italian woman who is sort of right wing, but she's also towing the line. I don't know of any women that are doing this. It's mostly men, as far as I know.
Right.
You know? So,
And even then it's a masculine energy. She clearly
yeah,
has a lot of masculine, you know, a lot of masculine energy. So yeah.
right, exactly. So, I mean, the only problem with all this is that it'd be so much easier to say to people, no, it's all going to be really smooth as silk. It's not going to be smooth as silk. Just put on your seatbelt. The road is going to get bumpy, but the seatbelt is good. You'll get through it, and then we'll get to the other side. And if everyone stays focused, because it's the other thing too. Remember we were saying about mental energy. We're like a collective of energy. If all Democrats stay positive, stay focused, it's as though you have to think. You know that thing where they talk about that experiment called the 100th monkey, where there are monkeys on an island, and in one part of the island, they were all on both sides of the island. They eat these potatoes that they find, and they just eat them. And then one monkey on one side of the island figures out that if he washes the potato, it tastes better. So he starts washing it, and then all the monkeys around him do the same thing. But then the other monkeys on the other side of the island simultaneously pick up on the monkey energy, and they're all doing the same thing because it's monkey consciousness. So here we are. We have to think of it as democratic consciousness. Keep your eye on the ball. Make sure you vote. Stay positive and envision a good outcome rather than, you know, pondering all day long. What if Trump gets in and he, you know, then the Gestapo comes to my door, and you know that's not the way to do it.
And that's right. And one image you can keep in your mind is just see Joe Biden on Inauguration Day, 2024. There he's standing right there. And just keep that image in your mind. And when you go to panic mode, go to that image and just counteract it so that you're not moving into that energy. And along with the Trump stuff, you know, we keep seeing all of these, the polls, which every time they show them, I'm just like, my psychic visceral like response is that it's just not, it's not correct. It's not true. And part of it is the media wanting to create the horse race. And Trump is good for ratings. You know, he's crazy. Whether you hate him or love him, you're watching him because you're either nervous about him or you love him. So he's still good for ratings. He's wackadoo. So when he appears,
Yes.
everybody watches. Like, what's going on now? Even
True.
if you don't like him. And so they're creating this horse race, and they want to create the horse race. And so really, really be very, very skeptical of the polls. And it's also how they still conduct poll. They still conduct them in a very old fashioned way. They're calling landlines still. They're not doing things, but they're just starting to do them, through cell phones and things. So they're not doing them in a way that is modern even. So they're getting a bunch of old people with their, whatever in the Midwest with their, they still have their landlines. So, and also ask yourself just practically, where are Trump's new voters? They're are they're the youth coming in? No.
No.
What voter is going to vote for him that didn't vote for him before? There isn't anybody. There's
Right.
nobody. They're not going to vote for him because the last time he was in, we were all wearing masks and afraid of our groceries. So who's going to want to, to go through that? That is where we were. So, he did an awful job at with during the pandemic, and the economy tanked, and that's the kind of leader he was. So there are no new Trump voters. So if everybody just does what they did last time, it's fine. We're gonna be fine. We're gonna be fine. But like you said, it takes focus and staying positive, staying in that mental space of we've been down that road, we're not going down there again. It's just not.
No, and polls, if you look at averages of polls, they tend to get a lot more accurate than single polls. And national polls are as good as useless, because a national poll, Hillary won the national poll. She lost the election because she ran into a problem in Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania. So the polls that count, look at the battleground states. Google battleground states. There are about 11, 12, 13. Track those states. If in those states Biden is having problems, then you've got a problem. But he's not having problems. For example, in Michigan. Michigan is a big problem for Trump now because of the way, by the way, Michigan, who's in charge of Michigan? It's a woman, right? Big problem there. Hold on that.
Right.
And then Wisconsin, another state that has caused a lot of problems. But Wisconsin is also, because of what they're doing as well, they're trying to do anti-democratic things. Nothing like getting people worked up to vote more and vote against you. So track the battleground polls, because you can win a national poll, but it's going to be what happens in those states. Like Montana, maybe not Montana, that's not one of the worst, but say Alabama, Montana too, they'll go Republican. But California, Washington State, they're Democratic. It's the other states, places like Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Georgia, North Carolina, even Florida. Florida is a lot tighter than people think, in an election. So that's what you want to track. And if you see that, that's all you need to see, right? And then pair that with, if you compare Trump and Biden through the charts, it's not even close. Not even close around how complicated it is for Trump, to do this.
And he has not even been named the nominee yet.
Right.
He's just the presumptive, and so, I think people are worried because Biden's not out there yet. Well, it hasn't really begun. They're not even out of the primaries yet. So give it time to let them beat each other up for a while. And then when it's settled, he'll be out there,
Yeah. I saw this thing.
It'll be okay.
I saw this thing that was fascinating where these people were discussing how Biden should start to, well, not so much Biden or his surrogates, people that are working with him, start to point out, because, the whole thing is, Biden is too old, Biden's cognitive decline. Have you heard Trump lately, the things he's saying? I mean, the man
it's so concerning. Yeah.
He's saying crazy things, like he thinks that he beat Obama in 2016. He thinks that Biden's going to World War II. I mean, stuff where he's, I would make ads and say, this man is in cognitive decline. Like, just feed him his own medicine. And you know what? It's true. And keep saying he's going into, I would even say he's also very stupid. Listen to him. Read what he says. It's just word salad. Makes zero sense. Anyone that reads a transcript of Trump's words, it sounds like an escapee from a mental asylum, honestly. Exactly. So play on that. And sometimes Democrats are too nice, and so I wish they would hire someone like Rick Wilson, a hardened Republican, to help them.
Well, absolutely. And, and the thing is too, is that those, you know, if you think that the coalition against Trump was huge in 2020, which it was, wait till 2024, because people like Chris Christie and all of these Republicans that are testifying against him they're not going anywhere. And this coalition of Republicans against him is just going to get bigger this time around, because they know now he is really dangerous. He wants to do dangerous things. Before it was just speculative. Now they know he really didn't want to leave, and he was not going to leave. And he staged a coup, and all these things happened. So he's a known quantity now. So you're going to see, I think, a coalition of Democrats, independents, Republicans pushing back like you've never seen before. I think it's going to be quite something.
Yeah, I mean, you can almost read that through his own chart, the tremendous opposition that he's facing because of that. I mean, he's created it. Again, this is not, don't tell me about fate. He did this. He was there. He was running this thing. He's just getting the result. So what do you intuit about McCarthy? Because he's also in a really, between now and around February, it's pretty tense in his chart. Like it could be, from the astrology, there are decent odds that he may be thrown out, that he could lose his job.
I really do think he's going to be removed. It's weird though, because I'm not picking up on who comes back in, like to replace him. And I don't know if it's just like they can't come to some kind of decision, so it just kind of stays open. Like it's just, and maybe he'll be kind of like the stand-in until someone else comes in. But I do feel like he's going to lose the speakership before 2024. And in 2024, I think it will be Hakeem Jeffries will be, because I think the Democrats will take back the House. They just do. I actually think they're going to take back everything. But with the House, I feel like he leaves, but I can't see anyone coming back in until after the election. So it's kind of weird. I mean, it just could be that these energies right now are unsettled. They're so erratic, and so that there are, and when you try to move into what's going to be happening, you move into that, where's the future going, you're just following you're following an energy pattern. You're following the probability, right? And so the probability that I'm seeing is he's going to get kicked out, but there's not really, that's where kind of the probability is like it dissipates, because it really doesn't go into anybody else. It just kind of lays there. And I think it is because they're just in chaos. You hear it. I mean, it's so unusual for them to be criticizing each other in public the way they are. I remember back in the Bush days, you never heard Republicans talking negatively about another Republican. They were in lockstep. And it is just, it's like a war in the Republican Party right now. So you're just not seeing that. And so maybe as he gets pushed out, we'll be able to more clearly see who may be likely to come in. Right now, it just doesn't feel like there's anybody quite there yet. That's pulling me in, and that's pulling me into them, and energy wise, it just isn't there yet. So but I do feel like he's going to be out of there.
Yeah, it's full agreement, 100% on that, because he's an example of also on a major Saturn transit, because it involves the Saturn return, and it's in a really tricky place. So it's amazing too that the people always argue about things like which news is the right news. The news was predicting this long ago. They were saying if he gets the thing, then he's going to have the right-wing nuts moving in on him. And that's exactly what they did. And they're threatening him. And then you'll have to talk to Democrats. But if he does that, he angers the base. I mean, talk about like someone painting a room, and they paint everything but the corner. And then they stand there and they go, well, where do I go now? You can't do anything, because if he could easily solve it, just get Democrats to, cut a deal. But then if he cuts a deal, they'll say you're a rhino, and also Trump will be furious. So they're in a major jam, and it's really reflected in his, especially now though, this period between, like I said, between now and around the new year, February, is really dicey, because whenever you see a Saturn station, in an area of your chart, given the context, right? I mean, for an ordinary person, it's a period where you're dealing with some things, like, it's fine, you just do it. But if you're a public person and this is the situation, it's tough. It's really, really tough.
Yeah. It isn't, and he's actually a really good example of not having a pure intention, right? Because he just wanted to be speaker. That's it. That there was no thinking beyond that. He just wanted to be speaker, wanted to be speaker. It's not like he wanted to do great things for the American people, or he had an agenda he really wanted, that was passionate about. That intention was so limited and so small that you can see it playing out exactly that way. Now it's gonna his speakership's gonna be limited and small because that was his intention, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah. And I mean, I often say with Trump, I say it couldn't happen to a nicer guy. Well, it's the same thing for this guy, because he's also not a nice guy. These guys, the thing that is most irritating is how much bad faith you see in the GOP these days. Just bad faith. They're doing things all the time that are cruel, that are, deceptive. It's like they cover all the bases on the negative side, and that's not good. It's not good for anybody. It's not good for society. So we just got to stay on it and push back until they realize, because, by the way, this guy, he calls himself a winner. All he does is lose. He loses over and over and over, everything he touches. So they'll figigure it out,
Exactly.
at some point, and then
at some point.
things will settle. What else can you do other than show up, right? So
that's right. That's right. Yeah, just show up, and like you said, keep that positive energy going. Get those positive images, keep them in your mind, whether you believe them or not. Just put them there, and it helps. It really, really does. It helps us to get there.
Yeah, yeah. Because it would be, think of a situation. I'm not saying it's going to go like this, but let's say, probably partly like this. It's natural in this country. It's very divided. You could get a thing where the polls are tight, they tighten, for example, maybe there's a big lead and then it narrows. Well, that's even more inclination or more of a signal to tell you got to go vote, so you can make sure. Otherwise, if you say, well, I'm not comfortable, well, then stay home and lose? That's not good,
Right.
The main thing is we got to show up to produce the result. And I think overall, though, from the astrology, as I say, the echoes are so precise that it's mirroring that tremendous tension, but then that the outcome is to the in quotes, the good side, the more democratic side.
I get the same thing. So I think we're on the same page, which is good.
So any other closing thoughts you have on any topic that you've come across that you wanted to comment on, politically or otherwise?
Well, nothing. The main thing I kept getting people asking about were these polls, because they're just so close. But it's so, I think we think of people all being like us, very focused in on what's going on, and people just aren't, until, even a couple of months before the election. That's when people are like, oh gosh, it's going to be Trump. Oh yeah, I'm going to go vote for Biden. That's just how people are. They're involved in their lives, picking up their kids and going to work and figuring stuff out. They're not in it like we are, or like people on TV are and stuff. They're just not in it yet. And once it starts to get closer and closer and closer, then people start deciding who they're gonna vote for. Who you're talking to now are the entrenched Democrats and the entrenched MAGA, and that's who they're picking up right now. And we're not moving, right? So once they start talking to the independents and talking to those disillusioned Republicans, that's when you're going to see the spread start. And it will probably be close, like you said, but I'm very confident that it's going to end up in Biden's corner.
Yeah. So full agreement. All right. Well, it was great being with you, and I look forward to the next one.
Me too.
All right.
All right.
Bye, everyone.